Can you hear me now?
Yep, Jared,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes. Good.
Yes.
Yep, Jared,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Hello, Christian. That's you. Haven't seen you in years.
Hello, everybody. It is Monday, Monday of March. Again, March last year was the month of everything locked down. And 1 year from then, a lot of things have happened. And we're really excited because I think we have a really special rehearsal today with some exciting new potential plans. But today is also the last day we're looking at the angel and also the earth song before we move on to our third section of this semester, which is the last two pieces that we're doing. And so we're going to be overviewing, of course, the angel, earth song, and talking about, again, sort of within the genre of chamber chorus. What are the things that are different than symphonic chorus? What are the things that you hear in these pieces, and how have these pieces even either grown or have become, what you see in these pieces, I guess. So I'm going to hand it over to Julia first because we're going to do a warm up, and then we're going to dive into the angel, and then we will have a little bit of a surprise after a break, I think, and then we'll go on to the earth song to finish up this last rehearsal of March, as well as this second third of our semester. So Julia, all yours.
All right, thank you, Ming, and hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Let's begin standing as we always do, and let's immediately, let me change the gallery first so I can see all of your lovely faces, and let's reach up to the sky, nice and tall, and imagine you're holding that giant beach ball that we've talked about before, and the goal for this is to make sure that we're not crunching our shoulders up towards our ears, but often if we just imagine that we're holding this good giant beach ball, it kind of helps our shoulders relax a little bit. As you do, make sure that you're not just reaching your arms up, but your entire torso is stretching up so that you see if you can get a nice stretch through your spine, through your torso. You feel your sides kind of lifting up. And let's grab one wrist and pull your arm up and over to stretch your side. Take a nice deep breath here. And on your exhale, go ahead and come back to center. Find that beach ball for a moment. Again, a nice good center point. Before you go to the other side, grab your arm, pull up, and then over into a nice good side stretch. Getting a little movement going in today. Take a nice deep breath. And on the exhale, come back to center. Find that beach ball again. And then bring your arms down just a tiny little bit into cactus, which we haven't done for a while. This is the return of our cactus position. And the goal is to see if you can kind of Find a nice space to pull your shoulder blades together. They want to come and snuggle together. See if you can bring them together. And feel a nice opening in your heart space, your collarbone and your shoulders relaxing. Make sure that your shoulders aren't pulling up as you're doing this, but your shoulders are relaxing back and down and together. And then finally, let's bring our arms down to our sides and adjust your shirt if you need to. And roll your shoulders back a couple of times and forward a couple more times. Bring your shoulders up to your ears and then let them drop. And then just kind of give a good little shake out, little shimmy. Just get a little bit of movement. You can move your kind of head side to side, or you can give a little shimmy, whatever you need, get a little movement. And then find that nice center position one more time. So your feet are underneath your hips. Double check that. They're underneath your hips to give you some nice good balance. Bend your knees a couple of times to remind you always to have soft knees and not locked knees. And with that kind of last bounce that you give, go ahead and just give a nice good rise through your torso. So that same sensation that we were feeling as we were stretching up with that beach ball, feel that lengthening and that lengthening sensation so that you feel like you're trying to make yourself a little bit taller and open as we do some breathing. So let's breathe in for a beat and hiss out as our exhale will hiss starting for 8 beats. Each breath will add 4 more beats, so we'll increase the hiss each time. Here we go. Big breath in and breathe in. 12 this time. Breathe in. 16. 20 on a pulse. All right, and then take one nice deep breath again. As you do, make sure that you're checking with your breath. Actually, to do that, go ahead and put one hand or both hands on either side of your rib cage, kind of not quite beneath it, but you're at the lower part of your rib cage, maybe between like the second to last rib that you have here. And as you breathe in, you want to focus on that expansion of the ribs, but also feel like the muscles of your tummy that you can feel with the fingers in the front here, and in the back that you can feel with your thumbs here, that you feel that those muscles are also expanding. So as you expand out this way with your ribs, you're also expanding this way with your belly and this way with your back. Let's try that nice deep breath in before we do the next one. Just take a nice deep breath in and find that space, and then exhale, staying tall. So as you exhale, careful not to collapse your tall posture. You want to stay tall. The only thing that happens is really these, everything that you expanded just kind of contracts, but you still have a nice tall posture. Let's do that one more time, a nice deep breath in. This time we'll just use an SH, so a sh sound on our exhale for as far as you can go. So we're not counting, but just see if you can get a nice consistent stream of air on your exhale. Here we go. Breathe in. Shh. All right, if you're still going, excellent. Stay standing while I sit down at my piano. And let's do a quick vowel flow with a nice lifted soft palate space. So everyone make yourself yawn for a moment to find that space. And with that lifted space, we'll go E, A, O, O, E, A, A, O, U. Our 5 vowels for our vowel flow here. Let's do that one more time in case you were just listening and observing the first time. As you do, focus on making sure each vowel is pure in its own little pocket so that there's not any e, ya, ya. There's no extra ya sounds or anything in between the vowels, but e, a, oh. They're each their own little envelope that you're packing off and sending off into the world. Here we go. And E, A, O, O, O. And let's start with a nice lifted hum, so nice rounded hum as well. And what I mean by that is we talked about this a little bit last week, but your hum should always have space in the mouth. So your teeth should never be touching and your tongue should never necessarily be up on the roof of your mouth, but tongue relaxed at the bottom of your mouth, that soft palate still lifted, so that yawn space we just found with those vowels, and a little bit of space between your teeth, maybe the space of like one finger, if you just want to kind of check for yourself what that feels like. And just kind of feel how open your jaw has to be for about one space in between your teeth there. And we'll just sing a nice, relaxed, but make sure you have all that space. Here we go. Ready and go. Down here, and using our hum and our vowel flow together, we'll go me, me, mo, 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 and just all on that one note all together. Always close into the M in between each vowel. And as you do, you still want that lifted, round, open space in your mouth that we just found from the last exercise. So when you close to the M each time, careful that you're not actually really clenching or closing your jaw or your mouth, but the only thing that's really moving are your lips. Me, me, mo. And then your tongue, of course, which also will adjust your vowel for you. So instead of moving your jaw around a whole bunch for this exercise, see if you can just kind of set your jaw on a nice relaxed open position and let your lips and the tongue do the work for you. Here you go, ready and go. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Breathe. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Nice big round space. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Last one. Me, me, mo, mo, mo. Excellent, nicely done. I saw some great, I love gallery view rather, because I can see all of you singing, and I saw great vowel shapes, great relaxed jaws. All right, let's now sing zinga, 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 zing, zinga, zinga, zing. And as you open up to the ah at the end of zinga, the goal is, and it happens so fast that it should be relatively easier than some other exercises, but the goal is to try to keep all of the sounds in the front of your mouth. Zinga, 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 zing, instead of zinga, 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 zing, where the ah falls back. Zinga, 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 zing, all through this front-facing space here. Here we go. Ready and go. Zinga, 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 zing. 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 One more. Zinga, 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 zing. All right, and now let's open up our space a little bit more. So Everyone go ahead and really drop your jaw. Put your hand on either side of your jaw here where your hinge is, right in front of your ear. And just drop your jaw and feel that space open. And make yourself yawn and find a nice tall space. And you can do a little sigh. Oh. And we'll sing, maybe not with that much space. That's a little bit of an over-exaggeration for the space, but it's nice to feel how much space you can actually use. We'll sing, ya. Oh, sorry, wrong chord progression. Ya. The same exercise we introduced last week to kind of get a little bit of movement, to kind of practice the stepwise motion for the parlando sections of the angel. And as you do, we want a nice relaxed open jaw for an ah, rounded space, so not ya, ya. And the ah should always be facing out this way instead of falling back. Yeah. Everyone just do that with me. Do an over-exaggerated kind of back of the throat ah sound, just for experimentation. Ah. And now see if you can get it as forward as possible. Ah. So that kind of forward sensation is what we're going for as we sing through this. And let's actually start in a different key because I think it'll be a little more relaxed here. Here we go. Ready and go. Ya. Nice tall ah. Just give the new key, but really make sure that you set your ah that you need for the whole phrase here, so that as you're getting taller, or as you're getting higher, you're not getting taller, and as you're getting lower, you're not getting shorter with your vowel, but really it kind of stays in the same place for the whole exercise. So focus on finding one placement for your vowel that can be used for all those different parts of your register. We'll start here. Ready and go. exercise, and we'll use some lyrics from the Earth Song to kind of practice some of the concepts that Ming was sharing with us about vowels and how to sing on the English language, sing with the English language. And this very first phrase, that is the first introduction of the melody, where we sing this dark, stormy hour. There's lots of R's in there. There are a couple of diphthong noises, right? So instead of going, we're putting this in a different exercise. Instead of singing the melody, we'll sing this dark, stormy hour. And instead of kind of closing to the R's and hour and those kind of spaces, instead of going this dark, stormy hour, try to stay open on those pure vowels for as long as possible. This dark, all the way down that whole way. This dark, ah, the whole way, ah. This dark, stormy, stormy. the stormy, stormy, ah. And then the last one, instead of going our, ah, just ah. Here we go, let's try it. Ready, and go. This storm, stormy, ah. 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 Two more. This storm, stormy, ah. Last one. This storm, stormy, ah. Feels a little bit strange to be singing the lyrics this dark stormy hour on such a cheery set of notes here. But let's do to close us off for our warm-ups, we'll take a nice deep breath and do a siren together from the bottom of a range to the top and back down. Really spend a long time in your siren. As a reminder, the goal is not to stretch and see how high or low you can go, but to really spend time on all the notes in between and make sure that you're feeling comfortable in all the different parts of your range and to find a nice connection. So nice deep breath, here we go. All right, and I will pass it back to you, Ming.
Thank you, Julia. That was fantastic. I like the, I think you said there's a lot of diphthong sounds or something you said. That's really great. So, as we mentioned, this is the last week that we are looking at Earth Song as well as the Angel. And so what has been sorely lacking, I think, at least for me, I don't know about you, during this whole COVID time, is that we spent so much time basically trying to regulate ourselves from day to day and survive from day to day and figuring out the changing landscape and, you know, navigate the new challenges that arise, that it's actually really hard to sort of reflect, right? Take the time and sort of look back. And I think this is what's nice about having sort of a periodicity to the rehearsal process here. We have 3 periods right here. We're coming to the end of this period. And so this is a time for us to actually look back and see and remember what it's been like over this little third of a rehearsal period to look at these pieces like we did in you. And so what I want to do is actually start again from the very beginning, like we did the first rehearsal with the Angel. And I actually want to read the text first. I don't want you to look at the text or look at your music. I just want you to hear the text and think about what you hear in the text now, having gone through the rehearsal process. And again, if you are cheating and you're looking at the text, I'm actually going to be reading that extra stanza. So remember that the poem originally had Lermontov, the writer of the, let's say composer, but the author of the poem actually had an additional stanza that he cut. So instead of 4 stanzas like we have now, there's actually 5. So I'm going to include that one because I think, like we had a discussion in the first rehearsal, it actually provides a bit of context that the author gave and took away to what the poem is really about. So again, from the very beginning of this piece, The Angel. Out of the midnight sky, an angel soars silently down towards the earth. But the moon and the clouds upon their nightly watch perceive his celestial song. He sings of the sin-free souls and how they dwell in peace within the paradise garden groves. He sings of the Lord Almighty, and his praise flows through this night asleep. He carries in his arms a restless soul to life's despairs and faults, but something in his song remains in wordless keep within the soul. The soul settled in the earthly creation, but the world was alien to her. About one, she dreamed all about the sounds of saints, not remembering their meaning. And long she suffers in this world of despair, but with a strange yearning worn. And never it fades, that tone from God, with its mournful sounds of the world. It's a beautiful, beautiful, evocative, I would say, pensive poem. And I just want initial thoughts. Feel free to, this is more interactive, but feel free to type in the chat what you hear in the piece now that you've given it some context of the rehearsal, how our composer, Tina Anderson, had said it, or what you hear in the text now, because I remember very clearly we had a big discussion about who these characters were on the first rehearsal. And just curious what your thoughts are now, having spent some time with the text and the music that was created around the text. I love this period of absolute silence before anybody chats. Very funny. I love both of these. Somber hope. The poem is a reminder of how easily we lose sight of all that is beautiful and good around us. I'm always reminded of, what is that Buddhist saying? Life is suffering, right? And it's not that we're suffering pain, it's really the suffering, the contemplation of existence, right? And to me, at least, that connects to Lermontov's poem. Other people? So mysterious angel, but bringing a gift of music and connection, yes. Anybody else? Reminds of the paradoxes of life, the good and the bad, the sad and the uplifting. Suffering endures. There's underlying and quiet hope under the despair and struggle. Just like the mythologies, right? Pandora, one of the first, if not the first human, and she lets loose out of Pandora's box all the evils of the world, and what's left in the box, tiny word, hope, right? Change he and she and God to earth to make it more aligned with my experience. Yes, exactly. It's funny to see these things somehow gendered, right? Love in our broken world. The thing that's really interesting, well, actually, I'm not going to say that until we listen to it first, but the idea that we have a connection with God and perfection, but we have to listen for it, So what I want to do is, again, like our first rehearsal, is without necessarily, well, you can look along with the music too, but I want to play the piece. And again, there's a cadence to how we speak. I've been personally listening to a lot of audiobooks recently, and I've just been listening to Anna Karenina, which is simultaneously horrifying and hilarious at the same time, because everybody has 3 names, and I don't know what's going on when there's only 2 people in the room, but I hear 6 names. But it's a fantastic, wonderful journey, of course. But the interesting thing that obviously is that when you're listening to an audiobook, you don't control the pace. And so if there's a sentence that is particularly meaning for you or impactful, you can't sit there and savor it, right? And so the cadence in which we sort of consume these pieces of art, whether books or music or poetry, is very different. And so I think the juxtaposition of reading the poem versus listening to it is a big difference. And so doing that side by side really gives insight, at least to me, about what the composer hears in the work, right? So let's listen to it. Again, feel free to listen, watch along with your score. But the key thing is to listen to the text anew and see the differences between the cadence of speech and the setting of song. my light has gone out. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Let me make sure. Gorgeous piece. And so, yeah, obvious question is, what is the difference between what you hear in the vocal setting versus the poem by itself? And, Lisa mentioned is listening to a single reader is very different from hearing the choral setting, speaking of solitary soul, like giving a communal understanding of sympathy, whether by angels or humans. Oh yeah, I'm happy to post in the chat the extra verse if we have ideas from people while I'm doing that of what you hear in the choral version versus the poetic version. Typing. So the middle verse I was, sorry. Yeah, the music feels more sorrowful. I feel that too. And there's a specific reason why I feel that too. But I hear in different parts of trading of the drone and a type of sound that adds to the solemnity. That's fantastic. That's excellent, right? It's really, 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 I think that does a lot to create that atmosphere, that drone, right? It gives to me at least sort of a timeless feel to it. Now, we talked about different parts of types of singing that we do in this. What are those, if people remember? Yes, there's a parlando section, speaking, narrating almost, creating sounds. Now, oh, did I miss Lisa's? Dialogues between the high and low parts illustrate the celestial and earthly planes. And the drone illustrates the lingering, almost subliminal quality of remembering the soul's true music. The voice of God sounds more awesome when it's actually sung. Yeah. It creates that soundness. Now, to me, this is really interesting to me. So if you look at, let's say, let's look at page 19. And Penny, Nadine says, wait, oh, I missed a bunch of you here. Whoa, there's a lot here. That's great. The voice of God, the additional verse seems to be a loss in the voice of God, the voice of the angel in heaven, dialoguing with the lower sounds of the earthly soul. Choral version creates mood and harmonies that lend dimension to the words that the words alone don't convey. Emphasis is more on the tonality of the essence of godlike quality, even the sorrowful earth, and then very different emphases. Music, tone, emphasized more in the music than in text. Why don't you turn to page 19? Page 19 with the pickup into 18. This is to me one of those sections where you feel the fullness of the song in context. That chord, E flat major chord, right? That comes back over and over again. But the interesting thing to me, which lends to me as character of sorrow, or that sorrowful feel to it, is that when we get to the end of the poem, out of the midnight sky, an angel soars silently down towards the earth, repeating that text. But something in his song remains within the soul. Now, this is, of course, very similar tone painting that we had before. His celestial song. You might think, oh, this breath of these chords before, but listen to it. It's a G minor chord, right? that's not a very stable chord. That's a very unsettling chord. If just the bass had changed, instead of, and it's the perfect tone painting for the poem. It's that there is remembrances of that chord, but we're not quite there. We never get to it. And the fact that it's an unstable chord and a long chord, but with some of the beautiful lines, is just gorgeous. It's almost heartbreaking, right? It's a really, really beautifully set piece. And so what I'd like to do now in our final time with this piece is actually sing through it together. But to me, the power of this piece, even though it's much, much harder to sing than a lot of other pieces, is not natural. There's sort of craft to it where your voice as a performer is really used like an instrument, right? Saying, this is what we're going to try to do right now, even though it's not easy to sing, it's not easy harmonies, easy rhythms. But that sort of creation of that huge chord and the differences between when we build toward it and it's so satisfying, and then we build to it and it's not satisfying, is reminiscent of the content of the poem. I think it's really gorgeous. So I've really hoped that you've enjoyed getting to know this piece, because it is not an easy sing. A lot of people had mentioned something that you're free to welcome to admit. This is part of the learning process. You know, this one's kind of not fun to learn, right? I heard that. This one seems kind of difficult, right? There's not necessarily, I would say, monotony, but there's sort of like, there's a lot of hedging to do. Like there's a lot of weeding to do. You've got to do a lot of work to get there. But when you see how beautifully, at least to me, how beautifully she set the poem, and how incredibly the music reflects the content of the poem, that to me is really hard to do. And there's a reason why this piece is as was lauded, you know, was awarded this prize, you know, for Abbey Road's 80th anniversary. And I think it's because she does such a wonderful job, and it should be a piece that's performed more often, but probably isn't just because it's hard to do. But that doesn't mean that the craft behind it isn't incredible. So let's try this. Let's try singing along with it, since we've been speaking a lot, but singing along with us for our last time with the angel. And yeah, I know it's hard for me to conduct too, because it's hard for me to conduct because I don't know exactly how much time they're taking in between things. So I'll do the thing where I'm like, oh, there they go. So we'll all do that together. So let's go through. Yeah, this is a piece that I think, yeah, like a lot of people, I think, again, the most important thing to me for pieces like this is that the more you dig into it, the more depth there is to it. And there are pieces that are evocative from the very beginning. That's one of the first things we do, is we read the poem, and then all of a sudden those words, the tone of God, the song of the soul, you know, et cetera, come out very, very evocatively from the first listen. And then the more we dig into it, there's even more. And like we've been sort of hinting at, or I've been hinting at, if you dig into this much more than we have been, because we've only had 5 rehearsals, there's even more having to do with the drones, having to do with the lines crossing each other. They repeat motives at sometimes. The repetition of the motive with some of the repetition of the text. There's just, the more you look into it, it's utterly an amazing work, okay? But let's do this, our performance for tonight. You plus everybody else, plus, was this Voce Sate? I don't remember if this is Voce Sate. I actually don't think it's Voce Sate. I actually think it's the, oh, it's Eric Whitaker Singers, isn't it? That's what it is. Okay, here we go. Who's some new? Hold on just one second. Let me find COVID-19 Spring 21. Anderson. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share right now, and then we will sing together. I might put my, oh, and I can't put myself in. I want to sing too, but here we go. Share screen. That's music. Share sound. Here we go. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work. So I hope
This is Audible.
this is Audible. Yes, it is Audible. Great. Audible is my online book thing, so it's really funny that it defaulted to that. Handmaid's Tale, oddly. But in any case, I hope that you've seen so far that of the three pieces that we've sort of looked at in depth, we haven't talked about Earth Song yet for today, but O Magnum Mysterium, and then of course the Seal Lullaby and the Angel. They are such rich pieces. They really are beautifully rich pieces. So what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna have a little break, but the break's gonna be a little longer. It's gonna be a 10-minute break. And then after the break, we actually have a little surprise for everybody. So feel free to unmute, get some water, do what you'd like to do. And then those of us that are in the surprise, get ready for your surprise. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. And so we'll take it from there, and I'm gonna mute and see you in a little bit. So we'll come back at 4 after the hour.
And if you're doing the social hour, getting a drink, don't be surprised if Zoom gives you a little notice about breakout rooms. Just ignore it. That's for some of the stuff we're doing behind the scenes. So just have a normal break, and we'll be back in 10 minutes.
Christian, how are things in Alameda?
They're great, Arnold. I'm busy for the next little bit, so I can't chat, but I'll catch you next
That's all.
break next week.
I've been out of the loop. Is there any prognosis on when we might be able to get together again, actually?
Reality?
I would think it's going to be quite a while.
I think it's too soon to tell. We have to see if the variants get under control.
And with the number of anti-vaxxers out there, I think we're going to have some problems getting 85% of the population vaccinated. That's another concern.
Right.
Let's fly to Detroit.
Oh, yeah, but and what good is that going to do you? Michigan's got rising numbers at the moment. I was just talking to my late husband's family on Sunday yesterday, and it's not looking good at the moment.
Where are they? The CDC director was on with Rachel Maddow tonight saying, pleading with people, please still wear masks, please, we're so close. We're so close.
They say that, and then the big problem is it turns out that close means months. I think they'd be better off just being consistent in their messaging.
But that doesn't seem inconsistent to me. I mean, I think at this point, close could be a couple months. I'd settle for a couple months,
People need some hopeful.
Like 6 months to a year, to be honest.
Yes.
Because
Well-
they're also looking at building some booster shots, because those of us who've had Pfizer or Moderna are not fully protected. I don't feel remotely optimistic, I'm afraid.
UC Berkeley is hoping that they will be able to run fall classes at least partially in person.
They're going to be in person, yeah. My friend is teaching.
That sounds great, but only if the kids are vaccinated. And we've got our high school, which is right next to me here, going. Kids are back physically in school, and none of them are vaccinated. So I don't see the difference between last year and this year, frankly.
Well, Colby College has been running for almost a year now in person, but they're doing weekly testing with the quick turnaround tests that produce results in 15 minutes.
Did you know Mills College is closing?
Yes.
Yep, it's going to turn into an institute.
But Berkeley's going to have classes there coming up in the fall. 200 Berkeley students are going to be there in the fall. I'm crossing my fingers because I have some connections with Mills.
Very strange.
I'm hoping they can keep it so they could save it. I think Carol Christ is in on some of these arrangements, so hopefully
Yeah.
they'll figure out something. I hope.
Maybe.
It's terrible when we lost CCA. I mean, can't believe we're going to lose another one.
Well, you haven't lost it. It's just moving to San Francisco.
What is? Oh yeah, but
CCA.
now the students over there are up in arms. Would say, you know, decisions are being made without their input, and like they're complaining about being kept out of the decision making, like the students at Mills were. Maybe if they'd been able to speak up, they would have been able to keep it in Oakland. I doubt it, but you kind of wonder, you know.
Yeah.
And if there isn't money, there isn't money, you know.
No, they were given free land in San Francisco. That's why they moved.
I'm at Mills.
Mills, yeah. There's declining enrollment and stuff.
But I read that it was going to be turned into an institute of some sort. I don't know.
I hope they keep it as a college, but we'll see.
Well, they may actually, the UC model may conceivably expand. I think I thought it was 100 students rather than 2. It doesn't matter.
I heard 2 today from my friends who are in the program that's going to be out there.
A good use of it if Mills can't continue. But UC may expand its undergraduate footprint there and take it over. It's more complication for the university, which has its share of complications.
Yeah. But you know, there's more space, and it seems to me that Berkeley's outgrowing its space, or long ago it's already done that. But
yes.
When I remember the campus when I came in the 60s, completely different place. But we'll see. We'll see.
I think there are going to be a lot of changes over the.
Yeah. The thing about Mills is my son and his wife live near there, and it works as a park for people who live in East Oakland who don't have a lot of park space, and
Right.
a lot of people walk there and, you know, recreate. There's a swimming pool that's been open to the public too.
My daughter lives over there also. You know, they have a clock that chimes every 15 minutes.
That's Julia Morgan's. That's Julia Morgan's building.
All night long.
That was Julia Morgan's building. You know that.
Oh God.
Julia Morgan built that clock tower. Yeah. That's one of her really important designs west of the Mississippi, apparently. But we'll see.
Well, maybe the new owners will turn off the clock after midnight.
But just tear the building down, right? It's just an old building. Ha-ha.
No, they won't tear it down. It's probably landmarked.
I also wonder what's going to happen to the Olin Library. I've done a lot of research in that library, and it's a very important resource for, you know, local researchers. And I don't know what's going to happen. What happens, just like the Swedenborg Library. Does anyone know what happened to that up in the Swedenborg Institute?
No.
When they start closing down these places and Berkeley's taken over that land, apparently. I don't know what happens to these libraries and archives. Somebody at Berkeley told me she did some kind of early environmental archive and it got sent down to Southern California and she doesn't know what happened to it.
Well, some of them survive, some of them do not. I mean, one of the worst things that happened in the last few years were how many of the government libraries were completely destroyed and all the materials were pulped by.
Oh God.
Yes, I know, Kat.
45.
Oh my God.
Yes, well.
Oh yeah, we're just gonna put it all online, right? Right.
Well, no, that wasn't the idea. The idea was they didn't agree with what the content of these materials were.
Yes.
So they simply had them destroyed.
So which libraries were these, Eileen? What libraries?
Well, there were 2 environmental libraries that were completely pulped.
Figures.
Just gone.
It's so shocking.
And the labor archive, the labor library was actually partially destroyed, and the other part Cornell managed to rescue, because Cornell has one of the top labor. There are two big libraries for labor materials and labor business labor materials, and one is the Walter Reuther Archives in Detroit, and the other one is Cornell University. And Cornell University managed to get into the labor library quite late in the game and rescue some of the materials, but the rest were, of course, already gone. There's another, the agriculture. This one is really horrific. The agriculture library, where they had a head of the Department of Agriculture for some 20-25 years. And what this woman had tried to do was, she was developing, over a lot of time, she was developing a plan to feed the population based on how many numbers we had. And she did all kinds of research for that. And she couldn't take our fearful leader at the time. And she decided to retire. And when she left, they destroyed all of her materials and all of her research materials. The only hope I've got is that she took some of them home with her.
A friend of mine used to do the art library's slide library. It was like thousands of slides, art slides, very, wide range of things. And I guess nobody knows what happened to that library either.
Nope.
Well,
lot
on a
of
happier note,
disappears.
the Swedenborg Library is still there at the Graduate Theological Union.
It is?
I just checked online. It's
Good.
there.
Well, that's
Oh, good.
good.
That's good. That's excellent. Yeah.
But they are being moved, right? Aren't they being taken out of there?
It says it's located on the campus of Pacific School of Religion. So,
But I
it's
thought
there.
Berkeley was taken over that space.
Puts a lot of books into
Developing.
Northern Depository, whatever, NLRF,
Hmm.
as they close down campus.
What was that?
There are a lot of the smaller libraries on the Berkeley campus have been closed to books, ironically enough, including Moffat, the undergraduate library, which is basically being turned into a meeting space for students. And the books are being relocated. Some are in Doe, and most of them go to the NLRF in Richmond, which is now finally being expanded because it was running out of space.
That's where the Bancroft sends their stuff too, right?
Well,
Does the Bancroft?
yes, I think probably there's probably a lot in the NLRF, but also in the Bancroft itself, they've got stacks.
But they send a lot of stuff out there for the archive.
Yeah, and that's where it goes. And finally, people who cared about it had an impact and were able to persuade the Office of the President to put money into expanding the Richmond facility. Which, if they hadn't done that, we wouldn't be able to acquire any more books.
Yeah, but one of the other big problems is that Richmond facility is, in fact, not just Berkeley anymore. It houses materials from some of the Cal States as well. And because I know that East Bay sent materials over there. And the trouble is, it's very hard to retrieve anything from there. I mean, we preserve it, I guess, but that's about all you can say for it.
Well, that's what's happening, is they're preserving physical materials and scanning everything, and then you have to try to retrieve it from online sources, and often that stuff is hard to actually access in a meaningful way.
No, and it's not the same as holding the real thing in your hands either.
No. But at least, if they don't do something to save this stuff, it's all going to be gone. We'll have electromagnetic impulse and everything will be wiped out of the cloud, and we'll lose all of our intellectual resources.
The other thing, if you're an independent researcher and you're now expected to go to a place like Cornell with no travel budget, to get the labor archives, I mean, this consolidation of archives means that you're out in the cold. You're an academic and you can afford to travel to these places.
That's right.
You have to get
You have to
grants.
get from the NSF or someplace like that and try to get a grant.
It's sad. I mean, I can't remember which Republican administration it was, but I was doing research. This must have been maybe in the Reagan years, because I think I was doing this in the 80s. I was doing research with the California Air Quality Resources Board, whatever it is. And the people were so nice there, and they were helping me get all this stuff. And they were so excited because they wanted me to see all this evidence about how the refineries in the Bay had refused to, comply, and how the Reagan administration had sort of caved to them, and it had all this evidence, and they went to get it for me, and it was gone. I guess it was the Bush administration. I can't remember which administration had called it back and then destroyed it.
Yep.
It's very sad when valuable information is lost like that.
It goes in all the time now. We're going to have to reinvent the wheel in some cases, I'm afraid. It's terrifying.
Well,
but what worries me is, you've got something you don't believe in. For example, you don't believe in global warming. So your solution to this is to destroy
the evidence. Yes.
It's just, we're in such an anti-science denial phase of life at the moment. It's just horrifying to me.
Sad.
Oh, it's terrifying.
We need to conclude our discussion on a more upbeat note.
What note would that be?
So sad too.
It makes me think of like K-12 education and changing things with the little ones to respect science.
We have to, yes, I think we have to have some sort of courses in civics that make us want to care about each other, and come together to in a meaningful way respect our not only our liberties, but our desire to make things better for everyone. It's like we've just given up on that.
That's like socialism, isn't it?
I know, but we have, it isn't socialism, isn't it?
Have it.
Values.
There's that bad word, socialism, yes.
It's Arnoldism.
Sometimes I think
We the people, that's socialism.
but I think you were talking about education. What was your
I'm
question?
talking about education. It would be nice if our schools were more on board with training our kids to feel a deep sense of patriotism in a meaning, not just my, knee-jerk, my country, right or wrong, but, I don't know. I feel like we're losing it.
I think at the deepest level, it's like we've gotten there's so much fluff added to a child's life now, and I'm gonna go on a rant here. Time, the parents are helicoptering beyond reason, the competition, the self inflated ego,
Indulgence.
on those kids. It's like, just go back to, honestly, I almost think it should be basic reading, writing, arithmetic, hard science, and free time, and no hobbies. Well, have hobbies, but
it's just about being
organized. All these organized things.
I don't know. It's just like that. It's thinking. No one's thinking for themselves anymore. No one's getting bored enough to think.
Well,
There's too much virtual reality stuff.
bring back
That's the thing too. That's
has to be one of those elemental classes that you're talking about, one of the basics, so people know how the Constitution works,
Right. So people know the Constitution and feel like, oh, I had to learn that, so it must be important.
I recommend infiltrating the schools as a volunteer or tutor.
Well, I don't know. You can't just volunteer to do all this,
Oh, yeah, you can.
You can volunteer and you can help other people.
Don't even understand the Constitution themselves.
I just got a charitable solicitation from something called VIDAL, which means Volunteers in Defense of Liberty. And they want you to send them money so they can train volunteers to go into the school as public speakers against all the horrible left-wing agenda that's ruining this country.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
I think we need counter
Nothing
vote.
simple.
I thought you were going to say the counter the right wing.
Nope, sorry. They're much better organized.
Sending it to people in Berkeley.
Well,
The people,
Really?
trying to split and break this country apart are well underway.
Right.
Well financed.
You know, I never heard of this at Cass Tech.
What?
I'm going back to high school. I was at a technical high school that excelled in everything in the city of Detroit.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no nonsense about this and that.
Okay.
But Ming, I totally missed a
Give a thumbs up if you can hear me speaking. I don't think Zoom can hear you. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Zoom can hear me right now. Hold on.
So Christian is having. Can you hear me, Ming?
I can hear you, David.
Okay, so Christian's having trouble with the mic to Zoom. Not sure why he's working on that. Right now. We also got an echo in here.
I did unmute my Zoom just to let people know what was going on.
Okay.
I'm going to talk and if you can hear me, raise your hand. If not, oh, I don't see many people raising their hand at all.
I'm hearing you on Jack Trip.
I do hear myself on Jack Trip as well, but I don't see very many people hearing me speak.
It's just probably the Jack Trip people, and we're spread all through the screens. David, did you see the chat from Christian? Chat from Christian. I did. Did you see what Christian? Did you see what Christian said? Ming?
Okay. Well, I'm back.
I can tell you what Christian said. The sound quality in Zoom is awful. I think we should end the experiment and try.
So, surprise! Surprise was reason. So I'm going to give away a little bit of the surprise. I'm so sorry this didn't work out because it was working so well over the weekend. We actually have this whole group that's been working together to try to work on this. Where did I go? So I'm going to, you can see me. There is this technology called Jack Trip. And Jack Trip is a technology that was developed in the Bay Area. And what it is to try to allow people in completely different areas of the Bay Area or around the world, maybe even, to actually be able to sing and be heard and perform together, no matter where you are. And this is actually a really good try because it's worked for groups as 20 and 30 and whatnot. But we haven't tried it yet with a large group in Zoom. And so this is an interesting experiment that we're going through. But again, yesterday we had a session all together where we had people singing with the audio. Singing together, listening, and the audio was lined up together as if you were in the same room together. And it's absolutely amazing. And the technology arose because this father had his son in a children's course. And when COVID hit, he said, you know what, there has to be some technology that makes this work. And so he just developed it himself. And I forget which group it is. But the goal is to try to show sort of what technology has been, what has been developed during COVID time, but also to try to see if we can incorporate this into BCCO sometime during this third, quote, trimester, we will say, of this semester, to try to see if we can all get together and actually try to sing as we can. And like I mentioned, we've done this in smaller groups and it's absolutely fantastic. And there's all these things that you sort of just take for granted that you do when you're in person. That is listening to your neighbor, listening to the sounds around you, aligning your consonants, aligning the vowels, and singing the same volume, singing the same phrasing. It's really, really quite wonderful. So this is actually good. This is good data to learn because again, we've never tried this with so many people on Zoom. And then of course, with a larger group, trying to do it simultaneously with Jack Trip itself. Again, Jack Trip is the app. It's actually hardware plus app, and they've also recently upgraded or changed their domain, or I guess, I don't know, server, maybe, I don't know, whatever. I don't know technology, but it's really great. So Nancy Brink, who's one of the three people that's really, really focusing on this with David Flack and Christian Fritza. We're working with a Jack Trip Virtual Studio, a little box based on Raspberry Pi computers. That's not food, that is technology, Raspberry Pi computers. But they added terrific sound cards that can overcome latency. Latency is the delay that happens through technology. And so it's incredible to hear each other and to really rehearse. And the software is actually 20 years old. And why isn't it? It should be incorporated with Zoom directly. But in any case, it's going to be a really wonderful thing. So we're going to go on with the rehearsal like we normally do. And like we mentioned, the other thing that we are doing at the other piece that we're doing is Earth Song. And so what I'd like to do is actually hand this over to Julia to talk about sort of the roundup of what we found in Earth Song. And then of course have her lead us in the last iteration. And Julia doesn't need to be the last 40 minutes. You can do as long as it, if it feels shorter than that, that's perfectly fine too. So
okay.
Julia.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ming. And hello again, everybody. So if you haven't already, oh, sorry, what were you going to say, Ming? Oh, okay. It looked like you were saying something. Okay, great.
And you're muted right now. I don't know if we can hear you.
Oh.
Remember, computer sound mute. You might have been on Jack Trip. So,
did that fix it?
Maybe.
Can you hear me now? Thumbs up, nods, great. Okay, excellent. I did have something plugged in from the Jack Trip situation. Yes, thank you, excellent. All right, so hello again, everybody. So go ahead and open to Earth Song again. If you're not already turned to our second song that we are learning and spending time on this second grouping here, this second trimester. So one of the things, if you remember back to when we introduced this song, is we actually listened to a concert band performance of this song that actually like had all of the motives and the notes and everything, and it was titled Sanctuary. And as we were kind of asking everybody how the song made you feel, or how the piece rather made you feel, piece being since it's performed by a concert band and without lyrics. And everyone was saying it had a very kind of warm feeling, a very like safe feeling. It felt like sanctuary. It felt almost like people were saying it sounded like Copeland. It sounded very kind of American too. And I think that was really interesting to take that first introduction to the song, listening to that concert band piece, because then as you remembered, then the music itself for Earth Song is the same. A lot of the same motives, a lot of the same, the harmonies, everything is taken kind of from that concert band piece and written for choral voices, arranged for choral voices, SATV. And the difference is, of course, the text that was added. And the text is something very special because it was written by the composer himself after the fact of having written the music. And I wanted to remind us of that again, because I think it's a different approach, I think, than we normally see from the compositional experience. Is that normally I think composers would come across inspirational text, be inspired by it, and write a piece on it, as I assume probably Tina Anderson did for The Angel, probably found that poem first, obviously, since it was written, a century before or so. She wrote the piece. That same is true for the Lauritsen as well, written on a sacred text, O Magnum Mysterium, and then Eric Whitacre finding a text by Kipling. So I think the opposite motion here of, instead of finding a text and writing music to it, instead having the music and having words that are inspired by the sound. And I think that opposite situation, where we're coming from the sound and trying to create a word space of how that makes us feel, and how the song, describing the feelings that we feel from listening to the music, is just a different experience, a different movement there. So to start off, creating a little bit of back and forth with you as well, having spent time with this song and learning the notes and singing with the recordings, and also having listened to the concert band piece at the beginning, just thinking about the music and not thinking about the poem itself, just thinking about the music and the chords and the kind of warmth and the stillness of it at times, and the growth of it at times as well. If you just think of all the musical work that we've done over the past few weeks, what are some things that come to mind? Are they the same as the poem or different than the poem? Go ahead and type in the chat some thoughts that come to mind, that the music of the song itself, the notes, kind of make you feel as you're singing through this. And it's okay if it lines up with the poem. It's okay if it doesn't. But I'd like to just to see. Anybody? Silence in the chat for now. The music instills more peace than the poem. Interesting, okay. You feel held. I love that. Yes, I do. I also have that experience, being kind of hugged by this music. It sounds like breathing and tranquility. I love that idea of breathing, because all of those crescendo decrescendos we have, this kind of ebb and flow, does kind of feel like inhaling and exhaling. I love that. Okay. All right. So a sense of tranquility and peace. A few more. This has shown me how hard it is to create a sound that conveys the text meaning when I'm gasping for breath on longer phrases like this. It's a very spiritual piece. It climbs up to an alleluia despite the dark hour. Exactly. And actually, off of that, Lawrence, if we all remember too, the composer kind of wrote this in response to the Iraq War. And so the idea of trying to, literally the dark times that he says, this dark, stormy hour, this is literally quite depicting a dark time, and trying to find a way through this dark time, and finding a peace and tranquility and a sense of sanctuary. So we also drew back to the original concert band piece, and that the ideas behind that piece as well, a sense of sanctuary. I wouldn't guess at the somber sense of the poem from hearing the music. Yeah, the music does sound a little bit more peaceful. The poetry depends upon the music. The poem alone does not move me at all. Oh no. But that's, that is the beautiful thing though, I think about. At the same time, I think the text can often heighten the music at times too, depending on what you're singing and when. So that is a beautiful thing about how text and music does tend to line up beautifully. The music makes you want to sway with the crescendos and decrescendos and seems to enhance the poetry, the dark and stormy parts, the dissonance that make you feel the pain. There's no feeling of war or strife. It's all about the sanctuary. Yes, I agree. It does have, as we've seen too from earlier chats, a sense of like hugging you, a sense of safeness. You know, even though it is talking about and talking you through a darker hour, it's finding that sense of stillness. So let's just flip through the music together a little bit before we sing together. So right from the top here, we have the first few words: sing, be, live, see. For me, these words are almost like a type of internal prayer or mantra. And I think I mentioned that also when I introduced the song at the start of this trimester. But it does feel to me like these, you know, when you're kind of sitting by yourself and meditating, kind of having like a solemn, prayerful moment with yourself, that if you're trying to, you know, see yourself through something difficult, as a kind of personal mantra, I don't know, it feels like it comes across like that. Sing, be, live, see. And we have these crescendo, decrescendos that are really beautiful, kind of leaning into the second beat here for each of these. But of course, the fourth one is different here. So as you remember, let's see if I can play this well. The crescendo going into the first three goes into the second beat. And then comes back. And even for this one on the third one. But this one doesn't have that crescendo, right? This last one, it also falls on a nice, comfortable major chord here to start us into the melody. And then the sopranos, the interesting thing about this next section where we have melody that the sopranos sing for us. Sopranos, go ahead and sing this with me, the first couple of phrases. 1, 2, go. This dark stormy hour, the wind it stirs, the scorched earth cries out in vain, we'll pause there. So while sopranos here are having this beautiful, gorgeous melodic lines that kind of crescendo, if you turn with me back to page 3, the first page here, sopranos are always singing through and crescendoing through your phrases here. This dark stormy hour. You're singing through each of these moments, each of these kind of 2-bar phrases here. Meanwhile, the lower voices are that kind of the ebb and flow, the breathing that we heard earlier about in the chat. If you're a lower voice, go ahead and sing with me, This Dark. I'll play all voice parts as well as I can. This is the pickup note on this. And then basses and tenors come in. Here we go. Just the lower voices, altos, tenors, and basses. 1, 2, go. There. But notice how the crescendo decrescendos are a little bit different than that opening, right? As a reminder, I know we've talked about this before, but finding that difference in the crescendo into the second beat for the first 4 little sections there for the sing, be, live, see, versus this section here where we're kind of continuing the same motive, the same lilting motive, but the crescendo varies now. This dark hour, if you're an alto. So you're singing into that third beat there if you're a lower voice. And then of course we do have all of the, the repeating melody here into page 5. So the same things that we just talked about as the text now changes. Oh, war and power, you blind and blur, the torn heart cries out in pain, in pain. And I think, as the chat mentioned as well earlier for the question, is that this music does sound like a beautiful, beautiful hug, but the text does really depict a really, really dark moment. The torn heart cries out in pain, in pain. So really, really heavy text here. But then this middle section, there's like a stillness. This is the contrast here, the stillness of the music, where we no longer have our dynamics. There's a security and a sense of maybe prayer or a sense of mindfulness or comfort, meditativeness here, stillness and serenity. I just, so many words you could come up for this section. But at this moment, we're realizing here in the text as well, music and singing have been my refuge. Music and singing shall be my light. It's like music has become our sanctuary, right? And then it does lead us on to that kind of spiritual moment, alleluia, a light of song shining strong, alleluia. This is the one moment where we have a giant crescendo through our long phrase here, instead of the ebb and flow that we've seen earlier in the song. So a sense of resolve after having recognized our refuge, that is music. And then bringing us back to the end here on page 7 for I'll sing, I'll be, I'll live, I'll see, right? Which changes that opening mantra a little bit with the addition of the word I'll, right? That's kind of a personal resolve here. I'll be, I will live, I will see, peace. So coming around here to a beautiful resolution and a beautiful resolve here at the end. So enough talk, shall we sing through it all together? I'm going to share my sound here and let's sing through. Be just aware and thoughtful. I know that many of the things that I just covered, again, kind of we had talked about together in group rehearsals or in sectionals, but it's always good to get another kind of overarching look at the whole piece. To remind us of, in sectionals, maybe we were working on a couple of measures or like a couple of phrases here and there. Now that we're putting the whole thing back together, looking at the entire form all together is always really great before we do our run through. So let me do that now. It's time to sing. Let me share my sound here and let us, here we go. Here we go. All right, so we will sing with voces and I will conduct. And here we go from the top. I'm going to pause here and I apologize. I realized that I didn't give us our first notes. We just went for it. You might have already found your notes, but in case you didn't, I want to make sure everyone finds them. All right, one more time. Here we go. What a beautiful song. I hope you enjoyed that kind of last walk through the song and sing through the song at the end of our little trimester with it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julia. You know, for me, there's one thing that I'm not confused about, but that I'm very curious about, and I'm curious what your thoughts might be. And yes, why don't we sing through this again, actually? But to me, I'm still trying to struggle with, or not necessarily struggle, but I'm trying to figure out what the last chords are. And then surprise. You know, so maybe it's up to you what meaning that is for you, but to me that's very surprising, and I'm not quite sure what that means yet, but of course it could mean something very different. Now this is a very short piece. What we like to do is actually do two things at the very end. Why don't we sing through this one more time, because it's short and it's a really, really lovely piece, and it's we end the semester. But also at the very end, after that, we're going to experiment with Jack Trip again. And so feel free to stay on, of course, if you're interested in seeing sort of the inner workings of how it works out. But also, of course, if you want to leave after that, feel free to take your piece with you into next rehearsal. So why don't we do this one more time? Julie, why don't you conduct again if you don't mind?
Sure.
The last chords are so gorgeous, and again, out of key. So in any case, there you go.
Okay, let me share my sound one more time. Let's go for it. And this time I will not forget to give you your first notes before we start. So here we go. From the top, we have... All right, and here we go.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, everybody. This is a really, really lovely piece. And remember that Frank Cicelli comes from LA, just like Morton Lordson, so they're incorporated down there. And so next week we are looking at last two pieces, including one from my undergrad, Westminster Choir College, by somebody that was born in the 80s, 1986. That's crazy. And it's an utterly gorgeous piece. If you liked Seal Lullaby, it's very similar, very evocative poem and beautiful accompaniment and beautiful chords. So, I think it's gonna be really lovely. Now, tonight, we're going to say either good night now, or if you